What is up, YouTube? This is BW368 coming at you with a reintroduction video to Yu-Gi-Oh! Up until a couple years ago, I was an avid Yu-Gi-Oh! Player from 2010 to like 2015, 2016. Unfortunately, with getting a new job and with my financial restraints, I had to leave the game for a little while to save myself up, get a little bit of money, and just wait for the right time to get back into it. Up until recently, basically, that's what happened. I am financially in a better place. I have a little bit more free time. So I've been spending my free time refamiliarizing myself with how the game is basically played. So for this is basically will be a reintroduction video for those who have played the game before, thinking about coming back, don't really know what's going on. This is to help you guys out basically. So to my understanding, basically this is the field. You would have 3 spell and trap card zones. These 2 zones now are basically your pendulum zones. They used to be like right around here where the field spell and the graveyard is, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Has basically reorganized the field, tightened it up a little bit, made it a lot more neat. And I think a little bit more balanced because having these out here meant these 2 spaces were open for back row, and with the way that pendulums would swarm from the extra deck from the hand to the field and whatnot was a little bit unbalanced to me, that you would have 5 back rows to back up your plays. So definitely a bit of a healthier change, I think, for me for pendulum monsters. These are now considered the main deck zone. So basically these zones are not to be used anymore for fusions, synchros, exceeds, and other link monsters, which is basically the new mechanic that they introduced. Basically, as you can see, this is a link monster. This is the only way you're going to be able to summon any extra deck monsters to these zones. How is that done? Well, as you can see, it says it's a link 2, and that there are 2 arrows highlighted. Meanwhile, the deck itself, the card itself has, well, 8 links basically, but 2 are basically highlighted. So basically, when this monster is summoned, which will either be here or it'll be here on this side. There are only 2 zones, 2 lanes, I guess you could say, that it could be summoned to. If this lane is open and your opponent's not using it. Basically, you summon this monster, it would go here, and it would open up these 2 zones for you to summon 2 other link monsters or exceeds or synchros, whatever your play allows. So now basically the game has come to a very much more strategic point that you have to be aware of your monster placements, which is a very interesting take on the game. It's adding a lot more strategy. It's slowing the game down a little bit for players to actually have to think about where they're going to be putting their monsters instead of just putting them willy-nilly all over the place, just swarming the field just like it used to be way back in the day. So it's definitely a very healthy change. But again, the main thing to remember is you can only summon 1 link monster here or here if the zone is open. And throughout your plays, basically, you can switch that monster in between the 2 zones as long as they are both open to basically summon more monsters. So let's say if this was here, I filled up my 2 zones and I link them off for, let's say, another one. I can put him over here and I can summon another 2 here. I can summon another 2 extra deck monsters right here and right here. Just because this monster is here now does not mean these 2 disappear. They get to stay there. They're permanently there until they're destroyed by card effects or anything else. Actual game mechanics. Whereas if I put over here, I can now open up another 2 zones, summon 2 more monsters. But again, this is where the game is coming to a point that you have to be very aware of where you're putting your monster placements. So it's a much more strategic game in my opinion. Definitely a lot slower, definitely a little bit more balanced if you're like doing your research and you're looking at the metagame through the YCSs and whatnot. I believe within the top 10, there's at least like 6-7 different decks now that are top, which this being one of them, the Salamangrates, which I just picked up. I'll hopefully be doing a profile on this within the near future once I get a little bit more familiarized. I just picked up the deck, and again, I am refamiliarizing myself with the game, so a little bit of patience. I do have another deck which I will be doing a profile on soon, but as for this one, need a little bit more time to get familiar with it. But this is just a short little introduction to the field. Hope you guys found this a little bit more informative, and if you like the content here, be sure to subscribe. I'll be putting up a couple more videos in the near future. This is BW368, signing out.